19th, 2025 to order. And can we all rise for a prayer or moment of silence from Councilman Russo?
Heavenly Father, we come before you with gratitude for the opportunity to serve our Enfield community. Thank you for the trust placed in us as stewards of the town's welfare. Grant us wisdom in our deliberations, clarity in our decisions, and compassion in our actions. Help us listen with open minds to speak with integrity and lead with humility. May the work we do today honor the dignity of every resident and contribute to the flourishing of all who call Enfield home. Bless our town, its people, and all those that labor for the common good. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Roll call, please.
Councilor Russo.
Here.
Councilor Santinella.
Here.
Councilor Ungary. Here. Councilor Sakala. Here. Councilor Crisati is absent. Councilor Hendrickson.
Here.
Councilor Ludwig.
Here.
Councilor Mangini. Here. Councilor Nasuda.
Here.
Mayor Nelson.
Here.
And Deputy Mayor Pisner. Here. 10 members are present, 1 is absent.
Thank you, Sheila. In the event of a fire, please exit the rear of the council chambers and go a safe distance away from the building or out these doors, down one flight of stairs and out the rear, also a safe distance. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the regular meeting of May 5th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Comments, corrections, or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, and next is the special meeting of May 6th, 2025.
So moved.
Motion's made and seconded. Any comments, corrections, or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? And the special meeting of May 12th, 2025.
So moved.
Any comments, corrections, or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Tonight's special guest is in regards to the Armory line, and we have Matt Hart, the Executive Director from CROG. Come on up, Matt.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I'm joined by a few colleagues.
I will just state, Mr. Mayor, that we attended a CROG meeting last week now that they've come out of COVID and they're doing live ones as our representatives. So Matt wanted, I guess, to bring most of the group that we saw there with him to come to Enfield. But I would just like to say we appreciate Matt and his involvement with the town, his interest in this issue, but more importantly, some folks say regionalize, what are you doing? We went to that meeting. It's of 38 towns from Hartford, Manchester, and us and smaller communities, and it was municipal services. Their concentration was, what services can we share? Where are we on AI and technology? And they're opening a center. Hartford had a great presentation. So it's a great group to be a member of. We welcome him again. He's a friend of Enfield. And I know moving forward, I've spoken to Steve and the mayor and our new town manager. We will have a robust attendance in CROG again so we can participate as well and contribute to give as much as they give back to us. So with that, Matt, welcome.
So what started here is myself and Representative Hall have been working with the DOT for months on trying to get something going with the Armory line rails and trails, or just trails. And Matt got involved and they made us an offer that I couldn't refuse. But again, I'm only the voice of you. So I asked if he'd come and make a presentation to all of us to make sure we're still on the same page of moving forward with this project. And he agreed, and he brought his whole team with him, so welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And thank you all, Town Council and Town Manager, for having us here this evening. Let me start off by briefly introducing my colleagues. I'm joined by Rob Eloise, our Director of Transportation Planning, Caitlin Palmer, our Director of Regional Planning and Development, and Mike Cipriano, who is a Principal Planner at CROG and is managing a key project that we think has a good relationship to what you're contemplating for the Armory line. So we're here tonight to talk a little bit about planning for a multi-use trail, the potential for a multi-use trail along the Army line. And as the mayor said, we've had a couple of discussions thus far. And whenever you're looking at constructing a multi-use trail, you need to begin with a planning effort or a feasibility study, particularly if there's an active line in place, as there is at least for a portion of the Armory line. So we're here tonight to present our recommendation in terms of how you can use an existing CROG study to help kickstart this project and help us collectively get our arms around what would be needed to appropriately study the feasibility of utilizing the Armory line for a multi-use trail. So that's what we're here to talk about tonight. We've got just a couple quick slides, and then we'd be happy to take your questions. I'm going to turn to Mike next. If we could advance to the next slide, please. Oh, I do that here. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Matt. So this is our priority pathway study. So we do have some money.
Oh, yes, use the microphone if you
Oh,
could.
sorry.
It might be, you might have to lean in.
All right. So here's our priority pathway study. We are 6 months into an 18-month schedule for the study itself. This is a regional study, so. Okay, sorry. So we are 6 months into an 18-month schedule for the study itself. And we've had extensive outreach with our municipalities, including Enfield. Aaron's doing great to kind of work with on this. So currently we're kind of wrapping up our existing conditions. We're doing some public outreach, but really kind of just getting into the study itself. We are looking to kind of build upon some previous efforts through CROG, such as our Complete Streets Plan, which was completed back in 2020 and revised in 21. Then our East Coast Greenway study, which Caitlin is actually managing right now, and I'm kind of helping her out with that. So she'll be touching on that real quick. So really, you know, what we want to do with this project itself, we want to create safe, comfortable, and low-stress environments for active users. So that's really people who are, you know, on bikes and peds and anything like that. And we're kind of looking to create off-road and or protected pathways for these users so they don't have to kind of just, you know, walk and ride on the road with, you know, busy cars and, you know, everything. So basically we're kind of looking to get infrastructure for people who are 8 to 80 to be able to kind of ride and walk comfortably throughout the region. You know, in addition to the safety aspect of this, we are looking to develop a more connected network for bikes and peds throughout the region. And so right now with our existing conditions, we're identifying gaps in that infrastructure throughout the region, so we'll have a map of that. And lastly, on this slide, we want this not only to benefit recreational users, but we also want this to benefit utility users as well. So, you know, we know we have like the Thompsonville area. We want stuff like this to, if someone's using the train station, the new train station that's coming in, they can easily get to and from the economic center of town over to the transit areas. So that's basically the study in a nutshell. I guess I'll turn that over to Rob next.
Yeah, so Rob's going to talk about how we utilize that pathways study to facilitate this early work for the Armory line. Rob?
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, the study Mike just spoke about is a region-wide study, as he said, and it's identifying the core corridors that might serve bikes and peds, the core network. It's a planning study, so it'll come up with where we want to focus our efforts in the future as to regional mobility for bikes and peds. When we were approached about the Armory line, we thought this would be a good fit for an extra work task in that study. We already have a consultant on board. We have some additional money in that study. We do not have enough money to do a full feasibility of the Armory line, but we have enough funding that we can create an extra work task in that Priority Pathways project and have our consultant, which is already an expert who's been vetted with multi-use trails, has expertise with rail with trail, rail to trail, to take a look at the Armory line. We do know that it's ConnDOT property, and in dealing with ConnDOT, that they are not entertaining wholesale abandonment of their railroad property, but they are allowing rail with trail. They've worked with us on another asset in the region called the Griffin Line to do some feasibility studies of rail with trail there. And we think that this is a good candidate for rail with trail. Now, we know they went out for an RFP, and they're in the process of getting another rail operator under contract. The rail operator would have rights to the line. So even though there's no trains running in infield or in portions of infield right now, or in all of infield right now, a corridor would have to be maintained for that provider. However, within the RFP, there were provisions that whatever winner of that bid would have to allow for a rail with trail. And if that is provided, obviously in infield, it'd probably be just trail for a long time unless rail ever got started. So what we're proposing and what we proposed to our consultant was to take a look at if it's possible to do a study. And we are not under contract right now. We wanted to come to you guys first to tell us with what the thought was. But the thought would be to get an extra work task to mainly focus on Broad Brook to the Mass State line in identifying what would be needed to do a feasibility study, how much it would cost, where the pinch points are, do an overview with a main focus on those limits. And also look broadly, a cursory review of the rest of the line to the south or other connections that could happen to the south. So basically looking at scoping out a feasibility study so that you have a scope ready and a potential cost to a feasibility study. If you wanted to go after funding, we could assist with that, but this would not fund that. But it would be a high-level identification of constraints. There'd be outreach meetings with the town, educating the town on what it takes to do rail with trail, creating a scope and a feasibility study for rail with trail, and the funding requirements. If we go to the next slide. So just to sum it up, this is scoping the scope. It's not a full-fledged feasibility study, but it's coming up with a scope that you could use in an application to go after funding, or CROG could use in an application to go after funding for a feasibility study. It'll include an estimate of how much funding would be needed to go after, so you know what kind of town share might be required or what type of match would be required. And it'd allow all of you to get educated on the process to go to Rails with Trails. But we're not envisioning, we don't have enough money for broad public engagement. It's mainly scoping out and helping the town scope out a feasibility study that could take place if the town wanted to move further forward with it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Caitlin.
Thank you, Rob. So next we're going to talk about, I think you're going to use the handheld. Caitlin's going to talk about another project that we have underway, the East Coast Greenway project. And there's a portion of that would involve rail with trail. So we think this is illustrative and somewhat similar to what you might need to do for the Armory line. So just want her to be able to share that experience a little bit.
Sure. I'll try to be brief because I can spend a lot of time talking about the Griffin Line feasibility study. So again, as others have sort of indicated, we have very recent prior experience doing this. The actual project that this was part of, sort of as an extra work like what we're talking about today for you all, this project is actually still going on. So it's very recent, fresh in my memory. Rob kind of talked a little bit about the rail with trail approach. And just to make sure that there's a clear distinction between the rail with trail versus the rail to trail, sort of that other bucket. For our feasibility study, we very explicitly looked at rail with trail. When it comes to construction feasibility questions of like a rail to trail, it's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of questions on how feasible is that construction. But the big question for us in Hartford, very specifically, there's a lot of constraints in one portion was, could you construct the rail with trail? So that's definitely what we focused on. Interestingly, I think Rob kind of touched on some of these as well. The Griffin line and your Armory line share some similarities. DOT owns the right of way for the rail in both situations and leases it to an operator. I even think at least at the time of our feasibility study, you might even share the same operator, which is just a remarkable coincidence. So anyways, I talked about the rail with trail piece. Rob hit on this a little bit as well. We coordinate closely with all of our transportation studies with DOT. In particular, when you talk about rail with trail, a lot of close coordination with Office of Rail specifically. They understandably have a lot of concerns and safety being at the forefront. This is an active line in Hartford that we were working with, albeit maybe underutilized, but certainly still active. So again, that's often with the rail with trail studies, it's often an active line, although I don't think always. So anyways, close coordination with Office of Rail. What we got out of this study in part was one of the things from DOT, the bottom right corner, even though you can't really read that, it's just illustrative of the design guidelines that we worked with DOT to get and then apply to our study. My understanding is these design guidelines can vary from rail to rail. So you might have a different one on the Armory line, for example. This wouldn't come out in sort of this initial work that we're talking about tonight, but it would be important for you all should you move forward. So we got that from this study. Our consultants did a fantastic job. They did constraint mapping. They gave us various alternatives, one on one side of the rail compared to looking at it on the other side of the rail. We got cross sections as well as renderings for a variety of alternatives as well. We also got cost estimates. So that's just an example of some of the things that you could expect to get in the sort of the next step in an actual feasibility study. And I can answer questions on anything when we're all done, I'm sure. But
Thank you, Caitlin. So now we're going to move on to our last slide, Mayor, then we can take any questions you have. And Rob and I are going to handle this. Rob, if you could start off, and then I'll add a few closing remarks.
Yeah, so near term, we would contract with, unless there's major opposition, we'd contract with our Priority Pathways consultant. They would perform probably a relatively short duration task, although they probably would not start until the new operator, if there is a new operator, or the new lease, let's put it that way, the new lease is under contract with the provider that ConnDOT is looking to sign, just because they'll want to work with the provider and ConnDOT and know the terms of that lease agreement. However, it would be a fairly short, probably duration task where they would identify a scope and a fee, and come to a few meetings to educate the communities along the Armory line on the process, and come up with a set of deliverables, mainly being that scope and fee for the next phase, that and probably some examples from around the country. And then following that, the town or others could be free to pursue funding with those materials for a feasibility study, whether it be, there are some state funding sources from DEEP, and there are also federal funding sources that could be utilized. There's usually a 20% match, a local match that would have to be obtained. And then finally, CROG would have the potential of, we'd be willing to oversee that study if the town wanted us to. So we are offering that up now if that's the way you wanted to go, but certainly that would be down the road. Matt?
Thank you, Rob. So, Mayor, just to conclude our short presentation here, again, CROG would be willing to spend roughly $10,000 from an existing study utilizing CROG funds to conduct this preliminary step that we've all described. And that would inform us all in terms of the scope needed for the feasibility study, the larger feasibility study. That would be the next step. That would be the next step. And as Rob said, because this project would involve multiple CROG communities, we would be interested in managing that larger feasibility study, depending on being able to obtain grant funds and staff resources, et cetera. So that's what we wanted to present tonight, Mayor. Happy to take any questions you and other council members have.
Well, thank you very much. Questions? Councilman Mangini.
Matt, good to see you again.
Thank you,
It's
Councilor.
been many years.
Yes.
So thank you for the presentation. I do have just a couple of questions. I know you mentioned that CROG has some funds that would pay for some of the feasibility study. Who would pay for the balance of it? Do we know the cost of the feasibility study yet?
Great question, Councilor. So one of the reasons why we would engage in this preliminary exercise is so we can better ascertain the cost of the feasibility study. Right now, the range we have for that is pretty broad, right? Is it like 17 to 40,000 a mile?
A mile,
A
yes.
mile. So we understand that's a broad range. This preliminary exercise would help us narrow that down. And we would utilize existing CROG funds from the project that Mike is managing to cover the cost of this preliminary work. There would be no cost to Enfield.
And then my follow-up question, with regards to the feasibility study, will that give municipalities an idea of public interest? That's the big question.
Yeah, good question. Which one of you is best to field that based on your experience?
You can. Any feasibility study, public engagement is a major task. So yes, going through that process, we'd be any feasibility study. The end product is trying to get a town council resolution of support, and if the public is not on board with anything, then it's unlikely that we would get that. But for DOT to take a step further than that and actually, be able to construct anything on that line, they would want public buy-in and town buy-in to whatever is being proposed. Yes. Caitlin, you have anything to add?
I was just going to add to that. Our feasibility study is a little different because it was part of a larger project. So if you look at our memo, and it's an 80-page memo, but if you were to look at our memo, you would not see any engagement component in it. Ours was strictly a technical exercise. So just saying that in case you did happen to peruse our Griffin Line piece. And I would just echo what Rob said. If that was an important piece for you, then that would just be a way you could add that to your scope.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Mangini. Councilman Ludwig.
Welcome. Good to see you. Thanks for coming to Enfield. Just curious, when you had the slide before, what are you considering Broadbrook? Is that where the bridge crosses the Scannick River? You said that, the initial red line you had coming from the Mass border, would it be the initial?
was the
Was that down to
Close
the,
to Town Hall, I think?
Yeah, it was right around.
I believe it's
that's in East Windsor?
Yes, Councilor.
So I guess I'm going to speak for myself.
Sure.
With the feasibility, you could, in my opinion, you can open up the line. East Long Meadow our border already has the line. They already have a walking path. So there's your feasibility study. Why don't I'd love to be able to have Enfield be a pilot through CROG from East Long Meadow down to the bridge that crosses the Scannick River. So let's start there before we start going all the way down to Hartford, which is going to take years. Okay, I'm sorry, look, this is going to take years if we do it with a feasibility. I just want to be completely straightforward. I would love to have the feasibility study. You have the East Long Meadow line walking path already there. Many people from Enfield already use it, and you can now extend it while you're waiting to see what happens with the new leasee or leaseor. I'm sure if you've walked that line, which I have, it's going to take years to go from East Windsor to Enfield to fix everything that's there. So why couldn't we use as a pilot, get it started with the DOT, have CROG help us with DOT, because I'm going to be straightforward. DOT's been kind of difficult on this, in my opinion. I'm just being honest. That you already have it. It's extended there. That's all farmland. And maybe there's some wetlands issues as you go towards the soccer fields, but it's already there. And we could actually get the project started. So once they decide if they're ever going to open up that line or not, well, we got it started. Then we can extend it to East Windsor and South Windsor and all the way down the line. So you save yourself $10,000, but we turn and we go to DOT and say, well, you already got an open walking path on our border. Now you have a multi-state project, right? So then you're talking about federal grants. It's a multi-state project. It's in my opinion, one of the most beautiful parts of our town, and gets people there. And if you've actually taken a walk up to you've gone to East Long Meadow, they have little shops that they've developed along the way, which is a perfect development for that side of town, in my opinion. Again, just speaking for myself. And it would be a great project with CROG, and we could use that as a stepping stone to go down towards Hartford. Just a suggestion. Maybe it's too much, but I mean, for me, I don't need a feasibility. I want it in.
No,
Why don't you
you
explain why
just
we
said
need it?
what we've talked about.
I want it in, and we can start the border, move it down to the bridge as a starting point, and then expand as you go. Because I think the bridge over the river, I can't wait to see someone who's going to sign off and say that can handle a 100-ton train. Okay, I'm waiting to see that, but we'll save that for another argument.
I think from our standpoint, when we approach DOT, it's nice to have a document that says what the constraints are and what it costs. We can certainly take this effort and have our consultant break up into sections like what it would take.
Correct. So you get it.
So that
We
you could-
passed 2 resolutions in 5 years to support this as the council. So again, I understand some don't support it, but councils have passed 2 resolutions supporting a trail, certainly a rails a trail. And again, if you're taking a ride out there, it's a perfect spot for it. And there's already a trail on our border, and you're talking about getting grants. Well, we can get federal grants now because it's a multi-state project.
Counselor, great points. We just think this preliminary step that's one of the reasons why we would be doing it, is, again, to narrow the scope. And yes, we don't want to unduly complicate things. There might be potential future linkages
I hear you.
to the south, but there also could be great linkages to the east, because the East Coast Greenway is a 3,000 mile trail
But if you
from
actually got the
Florida
trail set up, you can
to
link all- you
Maine
can
that
link all
runs
that.
through our region.
I hear you, but once you get the trail set up, you can link it to everything you're talking about.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying. You already got a linkage there. It's there. It's sitting right on our border.
We're just recommending this preliminary step, though, so that we can narrow what would be required in that feasibility study,
My
because you're going to
suggestion of
have to
narrowing
do
it is
that.
doing it from the border to the bridge so we can get that started, and then you can expand it as you feel. That would be my suggestion for narrowing it.
That's what he's saying, because I said the same thing. I was the one who said, why not go all the way to Hartford with it?
Right.
And they said, let's narrow it. East Windsor wants to stop it at Broadbrook right
Right.
now because that line goes
Correct.
active
Right.
from there. So they were going to focus on Enfield and that section of Broadbrook, but in this
How long is it going to take for the
potential,
feasibility?
right,
How long is it gonna
potentially we could do X, Y, and Z.
Just curious. I mean, because again, like I said, we passed a resolution 4 years ago.
How long it would take? We're not under contract yet with the consultant. We haven't heard back from them. We gave them a preliminary scope and wanted them to review it. So we can ask the consultant how long they think it would take. The one hiccup is they did say they wanted the lease signed first to look at what the constraints are, look at exactly what the conditions are. Now, maybe Condot would share that. I doubt they would share it
Yeah,
before
yeah.
it's
We've
before
dealt with
it's
this
signed.
since 1999.
Yeah. Now, we have met with, when we were approached by both Ken and East Windsor. So we offered up kind of that same thing to both from Broadbrook to the line. So that kind of, we're kind of, and the other good thing is this money has already been approved for this purpose. And we think that this is close enough match. This is federal money. This is a close enough match that it could fit into this bucket that's already approved. We couldn't use this money. We actually don't get any money for construction at CROG. So we couldn't use this money. This is planning funds and can only be used for planning. So the money we have identified now.
Well, I mean, I'm all for it. I hope we can start tomorrow so we actually can, again, like I said, it's there. All we have to do is start moving. It's there. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
So on the lease part of things, because this has been ongoing for a while, when we were on a conversation, and I don't believe CROG was on this, DOT, Representative Hall had asked for a copy of the lease, and they flat out told her, no, FOI it. So I think, we have some strong reps and a senator, and with CROG behind it, I think if we all work together and, go to the state and say, look, we just want a copy of this. You said you included the rails with trails. So we want to start this and try to push a little bit. But again, I don't want them to spend $1 if the sentiment of the council has changed. I know where you've been all along, Mike, so that's why we're here, because I don't make decisions without you. So, anybody else? Jim?
I had,
Oh, I'm sorry.
so I did have my hand up, but I think you guys answered my question. I was going to ask, do we know about the lease? But you just answered that with, we can't get it. So that was my question.
Well, we can get it, it's just whether we
Right,
FOI
right,
it.
but that was my question.
Right.
So.
So, any other questions? Is there consensus to have them move forward with this and
Yes.
report back? Beautiful. I thank you guys so much for coming in. I know you're busy, and so hopefully we see you next week with a final plan and grant applications for the funding, and we're good to go.
Let's go.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could just offer a couple of
Sure.
additional words. So fortunately, we've got a really good working relationship with the DOT, which I think we can leverage here. And then lastly, I want to acknowledge the town manager, Mr. Bromson, on his retirement, and thank him for his great service to the community and to the region. And looking forward to working with Mr. Koppler again as well. I know him from several years back. We were town managers together, and I think you'll be in good hands there, too. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you, Matt, and everybody.
Next is public communication. Any person who wishes to address the council shall first be recognized by the chair and shall set their name and address for the record. They shall limit their remarks to 5 minutes. After each person who desires has had a chance to speak, those desiring to speak a second time will be permitted to do so and shall limit their remarks to 3 minutes. During public communication item 7 on the agenda, public members shall limit their remarks to 2 rounds of 8 minutes. During public communication item 16 on the agenda, if prior to 11 p.m., each person shall limit their remarks to 3 minutes. Public communication shall be limited to 1 hour unless extended by a majority vote of the council. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a whole and not to any individual member. All remarks addressed to the administration of the town shall be addressed to the town manager and not to an individual employee. Public members shall observe proper decorum and good conduct and shall refrain from personalities and improper language. Who would like to come up and speak? Ma'am?
I'm Marjorie Gandassi, 31 Fruit Terrace in Enfield. It's a question regarding the presentation that we just heard. I heard that it was for a feasibility study, but they're coming before the town council. Where's the money come from for actually doing that work? Does it come from the town, or is it federal, or is it we're hands off, we're not investing money in that? And the reason I'm asking is we just went through school funding last week, and we couldn't fund our schools. And I like the idea of having a trail, but I like the idea of having schools that have reasonable school classroom sizes and have teachers that can teach their classes. We can't get people to move to this town. I wouldn't move to this town if I had a kid that I had to put in a 29-student class. And while I like the idea, it's a nice idea to do those types of things, I'd like to know what we'd have to put in to invest before I said, yeah, we want to do that. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
George? Welcome back, George.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Good evening, Council. Before I get into tonight's meeting, I'd like to ask the town to communicate with the residents of Ridge Road and Holly Lane as to what the plans are for road improvement. I ask that because they have remarked our roads several times, and I understand we have to pay for each time you remark it. And I also understand that the markings are only good for 30 days, and they have to be remarked again. Today, we observed some road cutting for Ridge Road, and I'm sure that Holly Lane is probably next because they have it all marked up. But we have some questions. Is this a replacement of the sewer system? Will we be getting fiber optic cable in our area? And Will this be a complete road renovation or just a resurfacing? If there is a timetable, then perhaps we should be made aware of from our town by a communication to each one of our residents in those two streets. Let's get into tonight's meeting. I'm not sure if this is a time to talk about the consent agenda, but I will anyway. Item C. The resolution is to set a public hearing for the 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act, and it has 3 nonprofits, 501c3 applicants. I'm not an expert at filling out the forms, but I do have some comments. One of the requirements of the Form NAA-01 is that expenditures must equal or exceed total funding, and that's a quote. Neither the Enfield Food Shelf nor the Enfield People for People meet these requirements. The Enfield Food Shelf requests $8,000 on page 1, which is $2,000 higher than their expenditures, which is $103 below their funding total. Remember, I said expenditures must equal or exceed total funding, and it doesn't. The People for People have total funding of $245,000 and the proposed expenditures of $213,500, which is $31,500 below the total funding. Another requirement of the form is to submit a copy of page 1 of the latest Form 990, which is the tax return for nonprofits. The Enfield Food Shelf has a copy of a return summary for 2023, which is not a copy of page 1 of the return. And why wouldn't the 2024 return be attached if completed? I don't see how the council could approve these applications when, to me, they appear to be lacking in completion. But I am not the right person that should be looking at these. However, it does lead me to wonder what effect, if approved, Resolution G to appropriate funds for social service grants to outside agencies supporting Enfield residents of $98,500 has on the applications for the Enfield Food Shelf of $17,000 and People for People for $13,000, which are included in that $98,500. This transfer is increasing our budget after it was already approved, and I believe it came from an 11th hour check from the BOE on the day the budget was approved. The council is now also requesting approval to transfer $234,226 in Resolution F back to the BOE, which will also increase our fiscal year 26 budget. I thought all the monies were all going to stay with the BOE. How does anyone keep up with this? Resolution D, for the submission of the attached town council recommendations to the Charter Revision Commission for changes in the commission's draft report. I found no attachment when I looked at it. So could we hear what those recommendations are? And I'll leave it at that, and I'll come back. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Pam?
Pam Townsend, 54 Kimberly Drive. Today, I had the honor, the privilege of attending a ceremony at the Governor O'Neill State Armory. The ceremony commemorated the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, which ended in September 1945. It was hosted by Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysowitz in partnership with the Connecticut VA Commissioner Ron Welch and General Francis Yvonne of the Connecticut National Guard. There were about 70 World War II Connecticut veterans, which included 6 Enfield World War II veterans being honored. Enfield's veterans' ages were 97 to 101 years old. Enfield, very proudly to say, had the largest contingent in attendance, and they were all amazing. Keep in mind that this is the 80th anniversary. Their overall ages were 95 plus, which included a 105-year-old and a couple of 104-year-olds. One who said the key to longevity is lifting weights. That was from the 104-year-old. Coordinating this effort, this event, was no easy task. Families or caregivers had to give permission. Each veteran had to have an escort. Some reside in an assisted living facility. The facility had to have them ready for pickup. There were many people that made sure our veterans were able to attend, and I want to publicly thank them all. But there is one Enfield person that was key in coordinating and managing this event for Enfield. And although she was extremely busy with the budget, the charter, and the everyday responsibilities of her office, she made this happen. So, through the mayor, to the town manager, to Sheila, I want to make sure I hit everybody. I thank you. I thank you for your dedication, your professionalism to our town, and especially our veterans. Today was absolutely amazing. It was so emotional to be there and to see all these veterans from all walks of life. And the Lieutenant Governor went around and interviewed these individuals, and to hear their stories and to hear their strong voices was just absolutely incredible. So I really appreciate everything that you did to make this happen. Thanks. I will close with a quote by Calvin Coolidge. No person was ever honored for what he received. Honor has been the reward for what he gave. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Anyone else? Sir?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. Aaron Thomas, One Terrace Circle. Don't know if this is on or not. I first want to apologize for my voice tonight. It's hoarse because of allergies and everything else. But I wanted to come here and speak on behalf of my daughter and my two nephews. My daughter is a senior at Enfield High School, and I wanted to talk about the education budget. She has gone to Enfield, the Enfield school system since she was in elementary school and throughout the pandemic, and will be graduating next month. We have seen firsthand many of her mentors be let go during the past few years. Many of her classes and interests were also cut. I have two nephews, one in elementary school, and the other goes to JFK. I cannot say that they will have the same experience that my daughter had going to school. I would like to say, as a real estate agent who works in Massachusetts and Connecticut, it's been more difficult to get people to come to Enfield or even look at Enfield because of our school budget or our school system. Even people are comparing it to Holyoke, Massachusetts, and Springfield, Massachusetts. Not to say anything bad about those, but those are cities with way more people than we have. Just something real quick. I just wanted to say that, and I appreciate your time tonight, and thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
What street was it you?
One Terrace Circle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lucian.
Lucian Lefebvre, 54 Kimberly Drive, also chairman of the Enfield Veterans Council. I'm here to announce Sunday, May 25th, we are going to have a parade in this town. I look forward to having a lot of faces along the parade route. This is a chance for the community to come out. We have scheduled a flyover with 2 Chinook helicopters. One of the pilots, again, is an Enfield resident, graduate of Fermi High. We have the Connecticut VA Commissioner as our guest speaker at the town green after the wreath laying ceremony and stuff. So the retired general will be there, Ron Welch. The Lieutenant Governor indicated that she's trying to get up here for our parade. It's a chance for the community to see the Enfield High School Band perform. They perform marching up Route 5, and they perform at the town green. We also have the honors choir to perform our national anthem at the ceremony. So this is a chance for the people to see what these kids are doing. It's amazing what they do and go into preparation to perform for our parades. I also had the honor to go down with the World War II vets today, along with our town clerk, Pam, and the deputy mayor. It was a humbling thing to see those veterans out there kind of in force. And we made a comment that in that building today, you probably had the largest group of 100-year-old plus people that you're ever going to get under one roof. It was just amazing to be with them. And again, I was honored and humbled to be with them. So again, we look forward to our parade. We have a wonderful program set up for the parade. We have a great guest speaker. We're looking forward to our school band to perform, the choir to perform. So let's get our Enfield residents out here to see what the school system is putting out and to come out and honor the veterans. This is to honor the veterans that gave all. So I look forward to seeing a large group of people along Route 5 and especially at the ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for the first time? Seeing none? George?
George Young, 8 Holly Lane. Would someone be able to tell us how many people were approved for the July 1, 2025 senior volunteer tax credit for the hours volunteered in calendar year 2024? I'd like to be able to compare what the budget was versus the actual expenditure. I have one other suggestion, and that is that the WPCA consider increasing the rate for the wastewater service so that they can pay the town more than the $390,000 they have been paying since the approval of the wastewater facility way back when. A look at the IT expense should also be done. Those amounts were based on certain services the town provided, such as the town manager, legal assistance, and many other overhead costs. The town needs to bill them their fair share, which should be much higher since we are now paying so much for supporting the town manager's office and the legal department, and especially all the overtime that is now being paid. This would reduce the mill rate to the taxpayers, and we will need it next year. I'm sure the council is aware that we seniors in this town are unfairly burdened with the cost of the BOE. We are looking for relief very soon, as we have paid for our children to go to school, and some of us our grandchildren, and for many years thereafter, at the cost of living at that time. And frankly, we are fed up with some of the council members who think we should just keep paying because we might have saved some money. I hope at least one member has the courage to step up and see what can be done to lower the taxes for seniors in this town. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Anyone else? Seeing none, Councilman Communications? Gina, nothing? Cindy?
Thank you. I do want to congratulate our World War II veterans in Enfield and throughout the state, and tremendous outpouring of support from Enfield. So we're very grateful for that. I also want to congratulate my godchild, my nephew, Evan Krusha. He earned his Army stripes, and he went to the George Mason University, and he's received his commissioning. So congratulations, to Evan. And finally, just one announcement. The Enfield Police Explorers is having their pig roast on June 7th from 12 to 8 p.m. at the Moose Lodge, and all are welcome. The ticket, I believe, is $20 a person. So if anybody's interested, Enfield PD, Police Explorers, please come out, support these young people. They pretty much are funded by fundraising, And this is a great fundraiser. So I would encourage people to come out and support the young folks that we have that are interested in public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Councilman Nasuda, anything? Councilman Russo?
Yeah, just one thing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to take the time to recognize a remarkable member of the community that, believe it or not, I just met today. His name is Bob Grindle. And how did I come across Bob Grindle today? Well, yesterday I was a bit irresponsible. First time in my life. I was at Shaker Field, and on my way out for the day, I left an item, a very valuable item, with some money on it, or some money in it, on one of the picnic tables. Bob was at Shaker Field this morning, came across my item and the money. He did some good detective work, quick detective work, and he was able to track me down and make a successful return of my item and the money that was inside. I offered, but Bob did not want a reward or a finder's fee. I did mention I would give him a shout out tonight, and it's reassuring to know that we live in a community where such outstanding character still thrives. Your actions have not gone unnoticed, and they serve as a powerful reminder of the good that exists around us every day. So I thank Bob Grindle personally, and I also thank him for being an outstanding member of our community. Thank you.
What a great story, Jeff. Absolutely. It's nice to hear things like that. Councilman Ungary, all set. Councilman Hendrickson.
I have one question through the mayor. Is the PAR report online for residents to read?
It has been. George usually follows it.
Okay.
It should be. If it isn't, we'll make sure. I know we
Just
skipped
checking,
a month,
because there
but
was a great Roads 2021 synopsis here, and I know George had a lot of questions about Holly Lane again. And
well, as I previously said, I endorse that residents should go. It's a fountain of information on all the different departments in town.
I agree with you. I like reading it. I'm glad it's in their agenda today, and there is some updates on your road there, George. And I know the pre-construction meeting hasn't been done because they just bid on it. I know Donald's out there. He can probably answer some more questions maybe later, but it is there, so that's all.
Thank you, Bob. Councilman Ludwig.
Did you tell George that's Holly with the EY?
I did not.
I actually wrote through the mayor to the town manager to Donald. So I know Abbey Road is out to bid, and I just want to remind everyone sidewalks on Abbey Road are included in that bid, and hopefully you'll be given an update when it's time. So I just want to remind everyone. I know there was some few years ago we had a little back and forth, and again this is just again through really I don't know if the town attorney needs to comment on this, but I did see some comments about the siting council. I don't know if you saw the interview with the chairperson of the siting council. I just want to say on record, I respectfully disagree that the process is fair. I think it's exactly the complete opposite. It's not about, again, it's not about getting to the residents where their issues are. I think it's quite frankly, when roughly 12% of the siting council decisions have been overturned, or meaning have ruled for the towns. I don't think that's a very fair percentage in my opinion. And I just want, again, I think it needs to change. And I appreciate what we did in Enfield. We weren't successful. But I mean, this is a big deal, and people just can't, it's going to affect every town. And the fact that a chairperson goes on TV when, again, they make it an appellate process, if they're going to make it an appellate process, then quite frankly, the state should be funding so residents can actually afford a lawyer to fight what will be in their backyard. I mean, there was an article about a woman in Torrington, and of course they showed the farm in Enfield. Again, my opinion, I mean, I'm sorry, fair is the last word I'd use for this process. I just wanted to say that publicly, but I also want to thank you and our intervener. It's sad that we have to intervene, but it's again, we're not really the way the process works. There's still a disconnect between the residents got to have their own. Also, they have to get their own lawyer if they choose to get, or their own intervener. It is not fair to the resident at all, especially if it's going in your backyard, which unfortunately those people on Abbey Road and Town Farm Road will have to deal with when the time comes. So I just wanted to say that publicly. It is not fair, and I'm hoping that the state decides that, no, this isn't fair, and this is an old, I think it was established in '79. It was originally established for the towers and all the other stuff. And again, this wasn't a multi-town project. I understand from a megawatt, it was in their authority. In my opinion, if you're not going to go to a local county, a local neighborhood to say, look, this is what we're going to put in your backyard, and you have to do it through Zoom and an appellate process, I'm sorry, that is not fair. I just want to make sure I state that publicly. Thank you.
So it's not fair. I
And
want to
I
be
promise
clear.
to be quiet for the rest of the meeting.
All right, thank you.
Got that on camera, right?
Hold on one second.
We got that on record.
Councilman Santinella, did you have anything you wanted to say? I forgot you were back there. John is stuck at the state, by the way.
Yep.
So go ahead, John.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I wanted to just give a shout out to members of the Enfield Police Department who participated in the Unity Tour. They bicycled from Enfield to Washington, D.C. to participate in the National Law Enforcement Memorial Services, which were held last week. And I'm always impressed when somebody can bike 500 miles and still walk. So congratulations to them. I also wanted to send my congratulations to the PLA class number 18 that graduated last Thursday. We went to a ceremony at Enfield High School. It was wonderful to see a group of parents engaged in the community, and they are really working on some great projects for the community. And lastly, I had also had the pleasure of being at the World War II Veterans recognition ceremony today. As Pam and Lucian said, it was very emotional. It was an amazing honor to meet these veterans. I do want to say for those who might be interested, their names. The Enfield delegation consisted of Jeremy Gorman, Edward Stanley Cott, Stanley Kakowski, Alvin Krupa, Ernest Maynard, and Henry Schroka. And I will say I did have an opportunity to spend a little bit of extra time with Mr. Maynard, and he is just an absolutely wonderful human being. And it was wonderful to speak with all of them and meet their families as well. So Enfield should be very, very proud, and it was an amazing way to start the day. And that's all I have today.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Deputy Mayor Pisner.
So I have a few things. Like Councilman Representative Santinella, I also went to the PLA graduation. Kite sponsors the Parent Leadership Academy. It is their 18th year, and they do a great job. I was sorry I couldn't go to the Green this Sunday. They did their health and wellness, their project. They have to do something, and they chose to do health and wellness. I couldn't go because I had bought tickets to the Opera House Players. I took my granddaughter to see Anastasia, which was fabulous. They never disappoint. Opera House Players never disappoint. I also had the opportunity this Saturday to go to the Felician Sisters Convent to help them celebrate their 150th anniversary. I've been a longtime friend of Sister Patricia's, and I was lucky enough to get on the invite list. It was a beautiful mass celebrating them. The sisters came here in 1932. They purchased the Longview Estate where they currently are, which included the Orrin Thompson House. It served as their convent for 25 years until they built a new one. Coming to our community as teachers, they ran Our Lady of Our Angels. They've taught in various Catholic schools in our town, and currently still run Montessori. And now they're trying to help our over 55 population by providing quality housing. So my hat goes off to those sisters, and I was more than honored to be invited to this special celebration. The World War II, what else can we say? I mean, we can beat it to death. Sheila, fabulous. Our bus driver, thank you that we were able to provide transportation. We had residents of both the American Assisted Living and Parkway. Thank you to Lucian, who stepped up to help one of the residents. Thank you. I mean, if we didn't work in tandem, he probably wouldn't have been able to go today, so we did a great job. There was a couple of things that stood out. I went through my dad's photo album. My dad is a World War II vet, and I went through my dad's photo album, and I brought some pictures. And actually, Mr. Cott remembered my dad. So it was pretty cool. He looked at some of the pictures. He said, I remember swimming with him. He lived on South River Street. So my dad died when I was 16. He never talked about the war very much. So it was just really a very wonderful experience today. But there were two things that stood out. There was one veteran that stood up and they said to him, what would you like to say? And he said, I would do this all over again right now because I love this country so much. How? It was just so profound. And another gentleman said, and our lieutenant governor, it really, really showed how much she loved our veterans today. You could see that in her face. And she went up to every one of them that raised her hand, and she kept saying, one more. Okay, well, one more. Okay, well, one more, right? And she went up to one and she said, what is your secret? And he said, I get up and I pray every day. And so those were the things that I took away from this. And it was just a remarkable day, and there's just nothing more I can say about it except thank you.
Thank you. So, George, on the Neighborhood Assistance Act, all we're doing is setting a public hearing. I do know later in the conversation tonight, with something on the agenda, there are questions addressing similar issues to what your concern was. I think they've answered your questions about the roads and where you might be able to go to get the information. I attended the JFK awards ceremony last week, and we got a lot of smart kids in that school. Let me tell you, it was pretty impressive. There was one girl, and her last name is Clark, and my grandson sat right next to her, but she was up there for almost every single award, and her parents must be so proud. I know I was, because my grandson was there and received an award, but there's a group of achievers that I have to say I was proud. And the school looked beautiful, and it was just a great night to share with the children. The World War II veterans event that happened today, unfortunately, I was flying back in and I wasn't able to make it. But I think a lot of the praise goes to two people who always sell themselves short. And it started with, they contacted me a month or two ago, and they asked, this is what we want to do. How do we contact the elderly veterans from World War II in your neighborhood or in your town? And I said, without a blink, I have just the guy and lady. And that was Pam and Lucian. And I talked to them, I referred their number, and they took it from there. They did all the organization, they got the people involved, Sheila, everybody, but it started with referring the two of them. Because if I knew if somebody could pull this off, it'd be them. If there was a way to get these veterans there, they would make it happen. And they did. And again, you sit here proud, but you sell yourself short. I know what you do for our community and for our veterans. And there's no words I can say to either one of you that will even come close to the appreciation you deserve, but I'm gonna try. And that is thank you from the bottom of my heart. Truly amazing people. So with that, I'm gonna move on to the town manager's report and communications.
I have no formal report this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Are you sure, Gina?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
he listens.
Okay. Next is the town attorney's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to introduce the new Assistant Town Attorney, Larry Whiteham, who's in the front row. Got to stand up. Larry's, oh, sorry. Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to introduce the new Assistant Town Attorney, Larry Whiteham, who's going to raise his hand again in the front row. And Larry's going to sit in on the second half of the meeting tonight to make sure that the town attorney's office always has coverage for you for all of the meetings. And he's been very helpful to us in the town attorney's office, which now has freed us up so that Mark and I are able to attend even more meetings during the day that were necessary before we just ran out of time. and energy. But Larry's been a big help so far, and I'm sure will help us in the future. He also is a very experienced in solar, so that on solar issues that come up, I believe we shouldn't have to go outside of the town anymore, other than if we want to do appeals and like that, we may need a specialist. But at least here we could better serve the individual communities' projects in case there was any more coming, which probably will be. I'd like to make a brief update on the Hernandez case with the Board of Ed. The notice to appeal was filed with Second Circuit Court of Appeals by Wes Horton several weeks ago, and we've now progressed to where there's going to be remote pretrial conference, and I'll be participating on behalf of the town basically as an observer because Wes is the expert in it. That's going to happen on Thursday, the 29th, so that I should be able to give an update in terms of the status of that particular case the following week, probably at an executive session. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the Deer Pond Recycling Project, which we discussed briefly before, but that's an application that's been pending with the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. It's going to be situated in East Long Meadow, right on the Enfield line, and Mayor Nelson had sent a letter to the Massachusetts DEP back in April, on April 8th, very articulately raising Enfield's concerns, particularly for people in the Shaker Pines area, also concerns for everybody in town with regard to trucks and the rail line that may be utilized by it, and a lot of environmental concerns. We have yet to hear back anything from Massachusetts DEP, but I've learned that there's going to be a hearing taking place in East Long Meadow with their Board of Health relatively soon, maybe even this week or next week. And so what I would like is authorization and consensus by the council to authorize the town attorney's office to appear on behalf of the council in the town of Enfield to restate the concerns that were, again, articulately expressed in Ken's letter on behalf of the town, and to elevate it to the point where these concerns have not been addressed. They've not been, there's no questions that have been asked about it at all. So I'd like to raise the concerns to the level of objecting to a project where they don't take into account anything we have to say. It's similar to what Mike had said, the way the Siting Council treated us, but at least this can be done in-house, and I'm willing to do it. So, and Larry and Mark, of course, are also available. So I would seek that permission from the council. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add, unless there are any questions any of the council people have.
See no questions, but is there consensus to allow Tom to go? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, and I will report back the next time, whatever
Okay.
happens there.
Thank you. I just have one question for you, Tom. Since we now have Larry on staff, is it too late to actually do an appeal against the Siting Council for Abbey Road? And let's put them to work.
Well, we can ask them. I think that at this stage, that ship's already sailed.
I know there's a period, and I just didn't know.
I believe that ship sailed, but as they implement and put in the project, I think Larry can be very helpful in terms of making sure that they comply with all the town's ordinances in terms of public health, safety, and welfare for the entire community, as well as all the people that are in the area. And of course, remembering, we got a lot of people that are walking on that path and riding bikes and whatever. So even the safety of those people as this thing gets developed, I think Larry would be very helpful on it, and he's, I'm sure, willing to help.
Beautiful.
Good question.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, through the mayor, I don't know, Tom, I'm sorry, Tom, what about, so we'd asked for this back when we were doing it. Can we get DEP to run some soil samples on the existing out on Broadbrook?
I think I'm going to ask our expert in the office And
Shouldn't
he-
they be doing them on an annual basis? I mean, shouldn't there be some sort of process here that they should be doing anyways without us have to formally?
I'm sure there is.
But if not, can we formally ask? Because we asked, I think it was like a year ago, and we haven't heard a thing.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that there is some kind of a monitoring process, because I saw that in some of the procedures that
Right.
they have. I don't know exactly what it is, but we can have Larry take a look at that and be able to report to you at the next meeting
I would love
what
to see
there
a
are
soil
and what
sample out on
our
Brockton.
options are.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Bob?
Just saying you should actually do one before and after on Town Farm also.
Right.
Just now's the time to get it before they start construction on it.
Okay.
Take one like every 5 years.
Yeah. He's saying take one now on time before they start the construction, so we have a baseline.
Well, again, Larry would be able to put something together that makes sense and complies with the law. I don't know what the answer is as I speak off the top of my head right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next is reports of special committees of the council, and we're going to start tonight with DPW and the South River Street Force Main Project presentation by Donald Nunes. This is something that we funded. It is a pretty critical issue on Prospect Street, and we funded it last year, and now they want to get it going. And I know, Mike, you were very adamant that everybody knows. So the DPW subcommittee thought the first step would be have Donald come forward, make a visual presentation, and then go over all the steps, because it's going to be pretty chaotic for a little bit. Welcome, Donald. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Councilors. Donald Nunes, Director of Public Works. So I'm here tonight to talk about a project, sewer repair project that's going to affect the residents of Nuntuck Street, Cottage Green, Prospect Street, and Thompson Court for about 5 to 7 weeks. For orientation, here is Alcorn School in Route 5 Enfield Street. This is Building and Grounds off of Prospect Street. Our South River Street pump station, and the actual location of the gate valve. So a South River Street pump station does between 750,000 to 2.7 million gallons of sewage a day it pumps. So everything you see in green here and red, except for this portion of red, all feeds down into the South River Street pump station. Then it pumps the sewage southerly, all along the westerly side of the track, all the way down to this gate valve that's here. The pipe daylights, which means it comes out of the ground, goes underneath the train tracks into a structure that was also built in 1931, where the force main and the gravity mains meet together. This gate valve was installed 1931. I don't have the exact date, but I know the year was 1931. So to get some more orientation, this is the very southerly end of South River Street. The resident here has been extremely accommodating. We spoke to him last November. We're reaching out again to him this week. We have to access the entire project through here, through the end of the road, through the gate, traverse this back here, and get down to where the location is. This is a Kelly Fredette right here. This is that little red building at the end of the street. So just for orientation, we have to fix this here, and it's gonna take us a little bit. So what is the current condition? As I said before, it comes down southerly, then it daylights, and it comes underneath. This is where it goes underneath the tracks, and here is where that gate valve is. It doesn't look out of place now, but when you look at this is an old lead and oakum. With oakum is typically used horsehair and a bunch of other stuff, so it's a hot leaded pour style thing, and this is all that material that's coming out. For scale's sake, this right there is one of WPC staff hand, so you can see how big this valve is. This was used in the past if they needed to, if there's too much volume going in, they would just open this up and let it go overland right into the river back in the day when it was allowed. Now we can't do that, and now it's leaking, and now what we want to do is completely remove that valve. Basically, we're going to cut it off here, cut that pipe here, cut it here, and put a straight piece of pipe in and get rid of that valve and get rid of another possible issue back in the future. Some more current conditions in the on the bonnet. There's a huge crack right here, and also on the actual wheel itself, the spindle. There's a missing bolt or 2 or 3, but it won't be there anymore after we get done with it. So we need to do 2 bypasses to complete this, very similar, excuse me, to Simon Road. So the pump station is here. We need to come out of the pump station. We need to dig under the road and bury the piping like we did on Simon Road. Comes back out of the ground, goes underneath the tunnel, and comes up the road to the first driveway, which we're gonna have to bury the pipe underneath the driveway, come back up again, bury the pipe underneath Cottage Green. We're gonna lay it right on top of the roadway, right on the curb line going easterly, bury it under Cottage Green East, Thompson Court, and we're gonna hang a right-hand corner, and there's a manhole here that we can tie into. We worked closely with Sergeant Meyer and EPD to come up with a traffic plan that would work, knowing that we have to, again, close the road off at this Nantucket Tunnel. We need to close it off just past the driveway here. We're gonna do barricades similar to what we do like on Elm Street for the Route 5 thing, so nobody can get through here. Because once that pipe goes through the tunnel, we'll not be able to fit a vehicle in there anyways. So then there's gonna be no parking on both sides of the street and road closed to local traffic only for that first bypass. The second bypass is at the end of Prospect Street where Kelly Fredette is. We have to, that structure that I was telling you where this comes across and goes right into here, this gravity line also goes into that same structure. So we have to get by all the 36-inch that comes down here. We have to get it past that structure and move it on from there. So we have to pump from here and leave the pipes overland and go to that other manhole. Then we can put, we call them balloons or blow bags. Basically, it blocks up the pipe from here, and we're also got to stop it on the other side so you don't get any waste coming backwards towards where the staff is going to be. So again, it's quite the effort for the bypass pumping. We have double redundancy with this because of the volume. So we actually have 6 pumps down at the South River Street because we don't know. Sometimes the flow is so crazy. Like I said, from 750 to 2.7 is a wild swing. If we have too big of a pump, it won't remain. It will not pump because it loses suction. And if it's too small, it can't handle it. So there's a lot of engineering that went into that portion of it. The repair cost, just for the bypass is $66,004. The pipe contractor is $30,000. Restoration is about $30,000, and Amtrak $2,000 for their permit. So total cost right now of $128,593. Just to let you know, I started this Amtrak permit on July 22nd of 2024, and was issued the permit on May 23rd, 2025.
Within a year.
Yes. So our repair schedule is, we wanted to do this tonight before to get it out to the public and yourself. We're going to be doing a media blitz through the town manager's office on all social media. We're going to be notifying the tenants and the owners in person, and obviously the owners who are absentee will be mailing out the things. We're going to start installing signs and barricades and mobilize on June 9th. The bypass pumps will take at least till the 20th or so to install. Then the pipe contractor comes in. We do the gate removal, which is only going to be a couple days maximum, depending on train traffic as well, because we need to shut down 4 to 5 minutes before and also after once it leaves because of the equipment involved. Then we're going to demobilize up until July 11th, then finally do the restoration on the week, hopefully July 14th through the 18th or sooner. So. And that's where we're at. So if you have any questions, or thank you.
We haven't cameraed that line, have we? Because it's got sewage flowing through it.
Which line, Mayor?
The force main coming out of.
Force main, you can't. Yeah, you can't. We can't do that. There's no. We could only get about 300 feet up that force main because we don't have another way to get into that. So that whole length, similar to the one on like behind the Legion. That's all one pipe, and there's no manholes. There's nothing to gain access to because our camera can only go about 300 feet.
All right. So where we're doing the little bypass at Kelly Fredette,
yep.
That's where the force main goes to gravity.
Force main goes to gravity right here, and then it goes this way. So there's a structure here, a manhole here, a manhole here, and there's a manhole here.
Right.
And there's also 2 on this side, so we're just completely bypassing that whole area. so we could block it off to work here. Otherwise, we're going to get backfed with sewage coming backwards into the system, and that's not going to be a good thing.
So we've had 4 failures on where the force main hits gravity. Have we looked to see if we have a potential failure in that area right there?
This goes directly into that structure. So the structure itself is it's a brick. It's a 19. Also, it's a circa 31 structure where we can't get into it. It's actually the way it was. We need to shut down the gravity line, and we need to shut down the pump station, and we need to bypass well beyond that to even inspect it. It's treacherous that the way that was designed. And the reason we have a little issue here is that it comes in from a 20-inch to a 36-inch, and it only goes out as a 20 or 21. So there's a lot of flow that comes down into that structure, then it goes out.
It's just a big area. If something collapses
Understood.
there.
No,
and I'd hate to do all this, and then a week later, that collapses on us.
Aaron and I, we applied for there was something, he was looking for a grant for congressionally directed spending, and also said for a grant to study this and kind of figure out the best method on how to repair it, how to replace it, and get rid of that older style system of handling it, where the force main goes into the. So again, that structure is not concrete, it's brick. It's brick and mortar, and some other interesting steel parts in there as well.
Is that better or worse?
It seems to be holding up better right now.
Yeah.
We can't get access to. We can only see so much of it, and the way it's designed, it's really funky.
Right. It just, like I said, there's a lot of work going into this, and the residents are going to be upset. But I'd rather do it once, and then instead of coming back. And I think you believe in the council. We'll invest in, the infrastructure if it needs it, and it's 100 years old. So.
I know.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Mike.
Again, Donald, fantastic presentation. I think I'll just say, look, in the last year with what you've done on, Martin Street, Simon Road, your presentations, the fact that you went out and met with residents in certain areas as well to give them the heads up. I mean, look, kudos to you. I mean, appreciate you being transparent about this to the public. This is a great presentation. I would, as a layperson, it looks like a tremendous amount of work. But Ken was saying it's probably not as big a project, maybe some of the other things we've done, but it certainly looks that way. So again, I appreciate the fact that you put this together. It's in public. We're letting people know, and again, that's what you're supposed to do. So again, I know this has been like a number of different projects for you and some of your staff. How you've just gone out and tried to educate the public on what was going on in the neighborhood. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Donald, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
I mean, anything you need, notifying the neighbors or something like that.
Yep.
Just let us know. We'll help any way we can.
Okay.
John, did you have any questions?
I do not, Ken. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. Thank you, Donald. Any other reports? Any other reports of special committees? Seeing none. Unfinished business, there is none tonight, so we'll move to new business, the consent agenda, transfer funds for the purchase of a new Magic Carpet bus.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any questions? It's consent. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Councilman Sakala had stepped out of the room. Next is an appointment. Tonight there is none. And next, C, is a resolution setting a public hearing for the 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act. Be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council will hold a public hearing in the Enfield Town Hall, Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, on Monday, June 2nd, 2025, at 6:50 p.m. to allow interested citizens an opportunity to express their opinion regarding the 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act proposal. Date prepared 5/9/2025, prepared by the Office of Economic and Community Development.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any comments? And again, I think this is where George could address what I don't think is going to be addressed tonight, but it might be. So, roll call, please.
Counselor Russo?
4.
Counselor Santinella?
4.
Counselor Ungary? 4. Counselor Sakala stepped out of the room. Counselor Hendrickson?
4.
Counselor Ludwig?
4.
Counselor Mangini?
4.
Counselor Nasuda?
4.
Mayor Nelson?
4.
And Deputy Mayor Pisner? 4. 9 in favor, none against.
Next is a resolution to submit the attached town council recommendations to the Charter Revision Commission for changes in the commission's draft report. Be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council hereby submits the attached recommendations for changes in the draft report or statement of no recommendations to the Charter Revision Commission for consideration. Date prepared 5/14/2025, prepared by Sheila M. Bailey, Town Clerk.
So moved.
Motion's made and seconded. So there was a discussion last meeting about the changes, and then we got a legal opinion that since the flags were not in their official report to us, we cannot address the flags and send it back to them. So, I mean, it was a tie vote, so who's the tiebreaker? That's why, it came here, but you're saying we can't do anything with it.
The answer, Mr. Mayor, is that you can't because it's a tie vote, which means that the affirmative never obtained a majority before the commission, and it's a weeding down or funneling process so that once the commission presents you with its recommended report, you can vote yes or no or make changes to anything that's recommended, but you can't override them and you can't force them to go back and re-vote on an issue that they voted on.
Okay, thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions? I know there was a discussion to go from 5 to 4%.
Yep.
Do you guys still want to send that back?
I do.
Mike?
Yeah, and we can, right? So I just
Yes, we
listen to
can
the,
now.
okay. All right. Yeah, okay, got it, okay.
Because they sent that.
Got it,
was-
I'm sorry, I want to make sure, okay.
All
Yeah, I
right.
think I think 4% is very reasonable.
So is there
Motion to send a recommendation of 4% on the referendum
to the
to
charter?
a charter revision.
Okay, the motion's made
I'll second.
and seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Russo?
4.
Counselor Santinella?
You all right, Gina?
Against.
Counselor Ungary? 4. Counselor Sakala stepped out. Counselor Hendrickson?
4.
Counselor Ludwig?
4.
Counselor Mangini?
Against.
Counselor Nasuda?
4.
Mayor Nelson?
4.
And Deputy Mayor Pisner?
4.
7 in favor, 2 against.
So next is a resolution regarding a bid waiver for the purchase of a demo ambulance. Whereas Enfield Emergency Medical Services seeks to purchase a demo ambulance that is new and available for immediate purchase. Whereas there is a national shortage of vehicles affecting the production of new ambulances, the town will purchase a demo ambulance. Whereas Enfield Emergency Medical Services will use a vendor that we have previously used, and that the bulk of the cost of the vehicle is covered under state contract. Whereas Enfield Emergency Medical Services will make minor modifications to the demo unit to ensure uniformity with the current ambulance fleet and increased lighting for safety standards. These modifications are not covered under the state contract. Now therefore be it resolved that in accordance with Chapter 5, Section 8, Paragraph D of the Enfield Town Charter, the Enfield Town Council does hereby determine It is against the best interest of the town to require competitive bidding for the purchase of the demo ambulance. Date prepared 5/13/2025, prepared by Aaron Riggett.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Go ahead, Mike.
I don't like waiving bids, but I think, Chief Riggett does a fantastic job trying to find the best deal, in my opinion, certainly with these vehicles and in everything. So I know she's very humble, and she won't certainly take the credit for it, but I know we've dealt with this on I think a couple of years ago as well, where we got, I think, a used vehicle for an affordable price. These are very difficult to get. And so again, I'm in support of this, and I want to publicly thank Chief Riggett, because I know she goes above and beyond trying to make sure she gets the best value for the Enfield taxpayer. I mean, I think I'm okay with waiving a bid here, and I think this is a good move to help get another ambulance, on the floor. Driving around town.
Mr. Mayor, we had previously appropriated the money, but then it became necessary to do slight modifications. As you know, this is a national crisis, trying to get fire trucks, ambulances, police cars. We came up with this, and the council agreed we'd do it before everybody adopted their budget, and we'd have to wait in line. But, Mayor, as you recall, when we went to the meeting at CROG last week, they're waiting 3 years for fire trucks, 3 years for ambulances. It really is a national crisis that should be addressed, but at least for this year, we were able to get it at a lower price from the same company to all of our specifications. So this is really just waiving the small portion, which is not on the state bid, for us to allocate. And I think, John, and that's about $30-some-odd thousand to do that, and we have the funding. So that's the explanation for our folks at home.
Right. And I think our fleet should be uniform. Somebody should know that's an Enfield ambulance, and God forbid if something in the back wasn't uniform with the rest of the ambulances and it took somebody a couple minutes to find it, that could cost somebody their life. So again, Mike, I think you said it very well. Aaron and the team, they do a phenomenal job. Take it from me. I mean, they saved my life. So thank you. I support it. And any other questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Russo.
4.
Counselor Santinella.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
4.
Deputy Mayor Pisner. 4. 9 in favor, none against.
Next is a resolution to increase the fiscal year 2026 appropriation to the Town of Enfield Board of Education of $234,266. Be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council of the Town of Enfield hereby approves the $234,226 increase in the total school appropriation to $79,332,249. Be it further resolved, the Town of Enfield adopts budget for appropriated fund balance account 1004000 space 499000 will be increased by $234,226. Date prepared 5/14/2025. Prepared by John A. Wilcox.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Questions? Councilman Hendrickson.
I just have a question. Did the Board of Ed ask for the money, this funding, or? I understand that.
Well, I mean, it's really not a secret that, we were around the 4% and to forgive the money is what we had all said when we met with them. And to go back on our word now, I think is wrong. And I don't want to use the word unfortunate, but assistant superintendent, acting superintendent at the time, Mr. Longy, did an absolute incredible job getting them out of the financial crisis that they inherited. They had extra money left over this year, which exceeded the amount they can carry over from year to year, which prevented us from giving them the money be in that line item, which also would have prevented them from replacing some of the staff members that they're looking to try to straighten out the ripples in the water and get things, moving in the right direction. So again, this was a promise that, one, I never voted that it should have been a loan because they have no means to pay us back. And I stuck with the 4% plus giving them the money back, and that's what we're doing tonight.
Thank you for the explanation.
You're welcome. Councilman Ludwig.
I must have misunderstood. First, but before that, the board has done, to their credit, Chairwoman Riley, the entire board, Andy Longi, and the new superintendent, managing their budget, getting it back under control, and the fact that they're able to pay us back. My understanding, we were going to forgive the 1.7, but there's so many things going on that night, we end up agreeing to some of the 1.4. So I don't think maybe I'm wrong, but I don't agree in moving this money back to them. And I think my concern here is that it's the next meeting after the budget we just passed. A, B, I understand they submitted the money the day of the budget or whenever it was. But this, I think, if I'm doing the math right, this will increase their MBR for next year. Unless I'm wrong, please correct me. And I know there's been some chat on some things that are going on in some of the schools. Why don't we just take a step back? Not that maybe we will send it to them, but there's ways the town can still support the schools without putting money back in their budget. I.e., maybe do we look at another SRO at JFK? As some concerns have been raised about JFK. Maybe some other ways of cleaning at some of the high schools. We've heard some concerns there. So I just don't think we need to do this tonight. And to have a conversation with the board. To their credit, they paid us back. Their first installment, they paid us back. All the credit goes to them. I don't want to turn this political because the credit deserves to them. But I just think we should wait because there's ways we can do it within our budget, still support the board using this money. And we can do it in multiple different ways. And without it affecting the MBR and still keeping, I guess, in theory, what people are saying, a promise. And then, well, again, we can do some different things within our own budget. And that's what I would rather do as we go to ask people in February for approximately $170, $200 million referendum, on the heels of just an approved $70 million referendum at the middle school and $100 million at the high school. So, the taxpayers of Enfield have certainly stepped up. So I would prefer to wait. I don't see why we have to do this tonight. I understand the explanation, but I think this could make sense to sit for a little bit, and then maybe we can answer some of the questions that have been raised, certainly around maybe another SSO if possible, or whatever it may be, that can come out of our budget, use the money, but just keep it in our budget. So then there's no MBR impact, and we still are supporting the board. That would be my recommendation.
Councilman Mangini.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Nelson, for doing what's right. I applaud you. I certainly am going to support this resolution. What we're doing is the right thing to do at this juncture, and the way you have delivered your message, it's very appropriate, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Councilman Ludwig, I agree 100% with what you're saying. And I'm very tough on the MBR. Unfortunately, if we don't add this to the MBR, they are unable to replace some of the crucial staff that they need. Now, I know we as a council cannot dictate what the board does once they get this money. But again, we have to instill trust in one another. And after talking with the superintendent at the awards show at JFK, they are looking for positions at JFK, where I think the gist of the problems are. So I'm not going to micromanage them, but I do know they have issues they've addressed, the staff has addressed, the students have addressed. And if I can funnel this money that I promised them to help alleviate some of that at JFK, I will. So, seeing no further comments, roll call, please.
Counselor Russo.
4.
Counselor Santinella.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
Against.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
4.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
4.
8 in favor, 1 against.
Thank you, Sheila. Next, we are moving on to a resolution to appropriate funds for social services grants to outside agencies supporting Enfield residents, $98,500. Be it resolved that in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 8F of the Town Charter, the following transfer is hereby made from general fund revenue appropriated fund balance, $98,500, to general fund non-departmental charges transfer out and contingencies transfer to social services, $98,500, from social services community initiatives, general fund transfers in $98,500 to social services community initiatives, network against domestic abuse, $17,000, Amplify Inc., $3,000, Educational Resources for Children, $13,000, Enfield Food Shelf, $17,000, Kite, $12,000, and Enfield People for People, $13,000, Enfield Homefront Team, $8,500, and Loaves and Fishes, $15,000. Date prepared 5/14/2025, prepared by John A. Wilcox.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Councilman Hendrickson.
Again, I've had discussions with the mayor, actually, on this.
Absolutely.
I'm almost willing to table this just because I'm looking for social services and these nonprofits to come in here, present their case, why this money should go to them, what the grant process is all about. I thought it would be a good opportunity today. We didn't have timing to get that done, but I would like to, before the money gets just moved over there, I would like to understand exactly what all these nonprofits are doing with the money and what the process is, how to get it.
So I agree with you. And I guess, and again, I flew in this morning. I hadn't had a chance to see all of this, so bad on me. But I thought we were just going to appropriate the money, and maybe this is something we can amend this resolution, appropriate the money so it's there, and then create what you were talking about referring, and, you know, because, again, I think there's other ones, too, like the Enfield Together Coalition and stuff like that, and really sit down with social services and get a true understanding of where, because it's a $200,000 line, not just the 98, and I don't think any of us up here realized when we cut it, they were just cutting this and leaving the rest of it. So, and I know you were concerned about that, Bob, and then when we saw what the outcome was, that's why we're here to adjust this. So we can either amend it, or I have no problem tabling it, but come up with some way to sit down with Cindy. And I think it should be the entire council, because I think all of us, you know, have questions and concerns, and who gets what and why they get that much money.
And I can share with you that Cindy does not have the information as to how they will use it. You know, in the past, we had asked for certain information, and some withdrew and didn't want to provide it. So I'm certainly, if you were to table it, put it aside, and then we come back, but Cindy then would have the opportunity to reach out to them before such a meeting, so she could ask them, whoever's interested, would they be willing to come and make a presentation as to the usage, but she doesn't have the information as we sit here tonight.
Councilman, Deputy Mayor
Can I just
Pisna.
finish?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go
And
ahead, Bob.
I will be abstaining anyway, as I am a board member on one of these. And I do know, I've talked to the Food Shelf. They are willing to come here and present whatever information that everyone needs, which I think is a great idea. I did talk to the finance director also on the cuts that we did make. It was a $200,000. It looked to be a $200,000, and there is grant revenue in there. And I've asked for the next year's budget book to have a grant revenue subtotal in there so that we know that we don't make these cuts that can potentially hurt some of these organizations. I would also like one question to, this doesn't hurt anybody if we table this right now. I don't know when these funds go to these nonprofits. I'm not sure the date on that. That's the only thing.
I defer to John, but I think if we want to make it part of the budget for July 1st, we would have to do it in June. Yes.
Okay, so we have another meeting anyway, so.
Oh, right, we have, yeah.
More communication than I'd like.
Right. So, and like I said, and if the time was an issue, then we can put it in that account and then, put conditions on it.
All right, it sounds like we have a couple more meetings anyways.
Yeah. Deputy Mayor Pisner.
So I was under the same understanding that the money was going to get appropriated and then they were going to come forward, because I agree with Councilor Hendrickson. I would like more clarification on where the money goes. And I know there was a time when Councilor Bosco sat on the council where actually the nonprofits came before the council, and I don't want to use the word plead their case, but, came forward and said, we need the money for XYZ. This is what we have in our account. We're short. We've got this. We've got that. I look at it this way. I give to a lot of nonprofits nationally and locally. I do my homework on the ones nationally. I want to know where my dollars are going. Are they going to salaries, or are they going actually to help? And I think this is very much the same thing. If we're going to take taxpayers' dollars and we're going to give them away to nonprofits, we should be able to look and say, maybe start a rubric on it and say, they have to do XYZ for the town, or have this much money, or there has to be some kind of accountability, not just a check. So I do agree with Councilor Hendrickson, and I would definitely like to hear from the nonprofits.
Thank you. Councilman Mangini.
Thank you. And I respectfully disagree. These nonprofits survive solely on fundraising, on assistance. This is a no-brainer. These groups are hurting far more now than ever before. We must be cognizant of that fact, and we must be social, and we must care for those that are less fortunate. I definitely will support a resolution to restore money to these groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. John, did you want to say anything? I keep forgetting you're back there. I apologize.
No, I appreciate that. Look, I think we've talked about this. These organizations have received funding from the town of Enfield for as long as some people can remember. They are an essential part of providing services to people in our community that are most in need. It is not unusual for a municipality to be able to be making donations like this. And I believe, maybe through the mayor to the town manager, just a question. I believe that these organizations do report to social services about their plan for the money. Is that correct or not?
John, I was trying to interpret head gestures from Cindy while we were talking, and she's nodding in the affirmative, but perhaps not to the detail that the council would be comfortable with, and we can look at that. I know they have an application process. She's also nodding to that. I don't think it's in that detail. To the deputy mayor's point, you are correct. All the years I sat here, they always came and made a presentation during the budget. At some point, and I don't know if it was during COVID or around then, people said, well, we're going to give so much, and just, they don't have to come anymore. So it's not extraordinary to do it. I think she has some information, John, but not enough information to answer the questions that are posed this evening.
Okay, well, yeah, Mr. Mayor, you know where I stand on this point, and I have nothing further to add at this moment. Thank you, though.
Councilman Hendrickson.
I also want to state, because it came up about the charter, and in the charter, it does state that any organization getting over $5,000 has a town liaison there at the meetings. And I will say I attended several of them myself, only not from both sides. So I'm just saying that the liaison should be there to see what that money is being used for and report back, which I failed to do. So I would like to say that. I do know. What's that? No. I will follow up on both of those organizations, which I happen to go to. I have not on Some of these other ones, I don't know if they have liaisons to Kite or People for People. I have no idea. So I'm not on those. I don't know. But there should be a liaison to any of those nonprofits receiving more than $5,000.
Councilman Ludwig.
To the mayor, town manager, but I thought when we did this years ago that a council member actually, when we had money going to a certain group, they had to make sure that the money was being allocated with the council. You know, there was some, we had we actually, I remember, we had some account, I don't want to use the word accountability, or, what I'm trying
Well,
to
I think there was sort of,
process.
yeah, there were perhaps some guidelines and feedback. And I know in point of fact, after some of the presentations, council didn't fund them.
Right.
They weren't persuaded that it was the best use of the money. So that was the custom. So I think, you know, there's always, and I think the thinking was trust but verify, you know, come forward, and then the liaisons in conjunction with social services would make sure that they kept on that path.
Did we have to pass a resolution, I thought, too?
We can look. I know we changed the resolution back to make it easier, but I do know when we asked for some of the financial statements, if they want, some declined to provide that. So it's a mixed bag. It's a worthy cause, but I think the fact you want to look into it to determine, you know, who, what, and why, and make sure we're on the same page. And I know that
And for
Cindy's nodding her head vigorously.
When we
So
have
I
this
think
meeting,
there's.
again, to the mayor, to the finance director, if you have to say it tonight, be prepared. Again, there's 200 grand in that line item or that section of the budget. I guess I need to explain, or I need an explanation the next time. If 100, because the point was to cut these in half, so not the full, so the point was to cut it in half. So if we're getting grant money in that section of the budget, how is that an expense? I have to admit, I'm sorry, and I'm not an expert in accounting, but it doesn't make any sense to me, so you don't have to answer me tonight. But at some point, you know, I think I need to understand, because the point was there's 200,000 in that section of the budget. We cut it in half, which was, again, the point was to cut these in half, not to eliminate the funding, and yet the budget showed a complete reduction of 100%.
On that side.
On that side,
But it
correct.
left the
Right.
other
So I
side.
guess, no need it tonight, but if we could have that when we have the next meeting, you know, and I'm fine with tabling it, you know, until we get that explanation.
Go ahead, Bob.
Sorry, one more thing. And I am not against funding or helping any of these organizations. I think this is a great opportunity for them to come before the public and get it out there what these organizations do and how they contribute to the town. That's all my point is on the whole thing.
Okay, so I don't want to see this fail, so I will entertain a motion to table, but I would like to ask, because it seems like there's a few moving parts in this that, you know, we really should get an explanation on, like that other $100,000. What's that funding?
Right.
What took a priority over these groups? And we want answers. So I'm wondering if maybe the next council meeting, we do a special meeting before downstairs, and it can be televised, where Cindy has a little bit of exclusive time with us and John Wilcox, and they can give us a very detailed explanation. And then we could put, like, Bob's concerns in a resolution form. Then we can fund that account, but these nonprofits have to go through X, Y, and Z, whatever they determine to be adequate, and then they would be eligible for the funds.
That's an
So-
excellent idea, and Cindy and John are nodding, so we will.
Are you guys good with that? All right, so I'll
Make a
What's that?
motion? Do we need a motion?
Yep, motion to table.
Motion to table?
All in favor? Okay, thank you, everyone. Next is a resolution to adopt the technical support specialist job description. The recommendation is that the town council, be it resolved that the Enfield Town Council does hereby approve the technical support specialist job description to take effect on July 1, 2025, date prepared 5/16/2025, prepared by Stephen Belinda, Assistant Town Manager.
So moved.
Motion's made and seconded. This was something that Paul Russell discussed with us in budget, and this is just making it formal.
Thank you.
Steve, you're good with this?
Yep, very good.
Okay. Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Counselor Russo.
4.
Counselor Santinella.
Despaired.
He's gone.
Whoop, he's gone. Counselor Ungary. 4. Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
4.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
4.
8 members in favor, none against.
Next is a resolution to adopt the revised parent educator job description. Be it resolved that the Enfield Town Council does hereby approve the revised parent educator job description, date prepared 5/16/2025, prepared by Stephen Belinda, Assistant Town Manager.
So moved.
Mr. Mayor, this one I approved as to form, but as far as the content and the substance of it, I can defer to Cindy Guerreri, who's in the audience here, if you have any questions regarding the content of the job description.
There's no cost to the town.
That's correct. It's cost neutral to the town.
Right, okay. And just one question for you, Steve. Should this be the Assistant Town Manager or HR Director?
I answer to both. You can, I put assistant town manager, it could be HR director too.
I mean, maybe just put a /HR Director on all of the things that you do
I
to
can do
cover
that.
it. I don't know how technical that would
Will do.
be. All right.
For HR related content, I will put HR, the slash there, so.
Right. All right. Does anybody have any questions on this? No. Roll call, please.
Counselor Russo.
4.
Counselor Ungary. 4. Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
4.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
4.
8 members in favor, none against.
Next is a resolution to adopt the revised Operation Manager Transportation job description. Be it resolved that the Enfield Town Council does hereby approve the revised Operations Manager / Transportation job description, date prepared 5/16/2025, prepared by Stephen Belinda, Assistant Town Manager / HR Director.
So moved.
Second.
Brief.
Yeah, this is coming back to you because we've been going out to the market with the current job description. We're not getting the candidates that we are hoping to. And as we looked at the job description, we see there's some information here that's probably dissuading or discouraging people from applying because they don't have some of the skill sets that is in this job description that we don't necessarily need. So we tuned it up, we made it more apropos for the actual job, and we hope that we should be able to get the candidates that we are now looking for.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Counselor Russo.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
4.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
4.
8 in favor, none against.
Thank you, Sheila. Next is items for discussion. Does anybody have anything this evening? Seeing none. Next is any other business proper to come before said meeting? Seeing none. 16, public communications. If it's prior to 11 p.m., it is not. It is 11:01. So we'll skip that. Just kidding. Just kidding. Who would like to come up and speak to the council? Lucian, come on up.
Lucian LeFevre, 54 Kimberly Drive, also chairman of the Enfield Veterans Council. One thing I failed to mention when I was up here the last time, the morning of the parade, post 154 and post 80, we go out and do a short ceremony in each of the cemeteries prior to the parade to honor the veterans that have given their all. And we start at 9 o'clock and move around to the different cemeteries. In most cases, we're out there by ourselves, or unless there's somebody putting flowers or something. But just so that people know that we do go around to each cemetery in this town to honor the veterans in that cemetery.
Thank you, Lucian. Anyone else? No? Seeing none. Councilman communications? The only thing I have is, do we have something on the town's website about the parade?
We work with Lucian, and he sends it to us, and we'll make sure it gets up. And we'll add Lucian tomorrow about the cemeteries earlier in the day, just so folks know. Yes?
It is on the town website under the veteran tab.
Okay.
Everything that goes on.
Yeah. We work well with them, and
Right, well, I'd
Yeah,
like
it's always
a media
good to be
blast, so
reminded.
I could share it on my page and just, I mean, we've got to do something, because this is, so, I mean, the town manager's page, that's different than the town's website, right?
yeah, we have a couple different sites, and I'll just add, I know everybody's anxious to go, but in regard to our concert series, which I think is going to be fantastic, we just want to make sure the folks at Mark Twain, they talk. Cindy has already spoken to them. If they want to sign up to come at the first concert, which is June 3rd. What time?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. But, Mr. Mayor, you had inquired about that, and we will do it within the budget. You also had mentioned, we informed leadership we're doing fiber optic to the band shell, and so we'll be able to live stream to all of the folks in town. And then you asked this evening whether or not we could actually have a TV monitor of some kind there, so we could actually thank our persons who donate, and we could put these kind of public events up, because let me tell you, not as many people watch this. If you have several hundred people there at the concert and they're waiting and they're passing time at the beginning, we could put up notable things from the town. We could thank those who have given contributions, and we wouldn't have to keep the screen out there. We could do it from the donations we've received and use it for other venues. But I think that was a good idea, and I thought it'd be important, because these are the types of events that people there would want to hear and see about, and they're probably not normally going on our website. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that suggestion.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Pisner.
So I'm not trying to be a naysayer here, but if the parade gets rained out, there still is a ceremony at Enfield High, am I correct? And that would start at 1 o'clock. And at Enfield, okay. So again, I'm not trying to be but
It's not going to rain.
it's not going to rain, but just in case.
Anyone else? Second.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.